nothing on this. Then response to PorpoStaz, I think. So in long-faced individuals, the typical vertical maxillary excess means that more maxilla is present downward. In this case, is maxilla just shifted downward, but the overall length of the bone is normal? Or more simply, the maxilla grew more downward, making it overly long too. Now, what I've done is I often go online to find images, and it's always interesting when I go online and find one of our own images. I've seen this set of images all over the place, and I actually found this on someone who was trying to raise funds so that he can have some form of corrective surgery, because he says through no fault of his own he got maxillary excess through poor orthodontics. That's an interesting subject. Anyway, these are two sisters. They're not twins, as I've often heard said. Their heads aren't in quite the same orientation, so be careful about trying to make a direct comparison between them. I think what happens when the maxilla drops is it drops and the forward display of cheekbone becomes less. So it drops down, it drops back, so it maintains approximately its own volume. Approximately, I don't know, and I think it then becomes longer and thinner as it drops down. I was always fascinated with the work of Harvold when he placed this uncomfortable plastic wedge on the roof of the mouth for these monkeys, and what they noticed is that without the tongue supporting the maxilla or the palate, the maxilla dropped. Was it 1.4 millimeters a month for any of the groups? So the growing males, the growing females, and non-growing females all dropped by the same amount, or shall I say the same rate, which that fascinated me. But as the maxilla drops, of course, everything else is going down. It's a bit like you're morphing the face. So the whole area under the eye also drops down, and the relative distances try to maintain themselves. However, I think that the maxilla, as it drops, it is getting longer. It's not maintaining the same forward dimensions, certainly. And I think I say that if you were to disarticulate a skull and place all the bones on the table and then compare a long-faced individual with a perfect-faced individual, I think you would struggle to notice from any one of the bones that there was a great deal of difference, possibly with the exception of the maxilla and the mandible, but still they would be less deformed, shall I say, and more change in relationship between each of the bones. Down. And of course we're going to illustrate that. I mean, you must be familiar with these slides. Here's good growth, and the nose doesn't look so big. Here's some poor growth. So you haven't got the tongue on the roof. You don't have the indirect forces. So the direct force of the tongue should be on the roof of the mouth. The indirect force of the teeth biting together should hold that maxilla up, and then you'd get good growth. It doesn't. The maxilla drops down. Of course, you lose the angle of the ramus, and you gain this antigonial notch. That's this little patch just here, which is called an antigonial notch, the gonion being the angle of the mandible there. But I covered this earlier on, and I think that entrance into the skull is going to have to be similar to this entrance into the skull. What's happened is that this section from here to here has effectively dropped down. But then what people do is, as Marcotte noticed, they always have this point here directly above this point here. So people upright their heads, and of course if you're going to upright your head, you're going to make your nose, and you don't have a maxillary support, then you make your nose look larger than it really is.